The reservation at Marcello's was for 7:30, and I arrived exactly on time. The restaurant glowed with soft lighting and the buzz of wealthy diners enjoying their Saturday evening. My father's 60th birthday celebration, hosted by my brother Derek at what he'd called the most exclusive restaurant in the city. I spotted my family immediately. They'd taken the large corner table with the best view of the city skyline. Derek sat at the head with his wife Monica, both dressed in designer everything. My parents were to his right and my sister Amanda and her husband occupied the other side. The only empty seat was at the far end naturally. "Sarah," my mother called out as I approached. "Oh, you made it. We thought you might be working late at that restaurant you manage." "I made time for Dad's birthday," I said, hugging my father. "Happy birthday, Dad." "Thank you, sweetheart," he smiled warmly. Dad had always been kinder than the rest of them, even if he rarely stood up to their treatment of me. I took my seat and immediately noticed the champagne bottle. A $400 Dom Perignon according to the label Derek was showing off to the table. "Only the best for Dad," Derek announced. "This is what success tastes like. You wouldn't understand, Sarah, but one day maybe you'll get there." I smiled and said nothing. Derek was 34, worked in finance and made about $250,000 a year. He'd been insufferable about it since his first promotion. "Sarah, sweetie, are you still working at that Italian place downtown?" Monica asked with exaggerated concern. "The one with the red awnings?" "I work in restaurant management," I said simply. Right, Derek waved his hand. "Managing shifts and seating charts. Hey, no shame in it. Not everyone can handle high-level corporate strategy like some of us." Amanda giggled. "Remember when Sarah said she wanted to open her own restaurant? What were you, 22? 23, I corrected. "We tried to tell you it was unrealistic," Mom said gently. "The restaurant industry is so difficult. We just wanted to protect you from disappointment." "So you became a manager instead," Derek nodded approvingly. "Smart. Let someone else take the financial risk while you get a steady paycheck. Probably making what, $45,000? $50,000 if you're lucky?" The server arrived with menus, beautiful leather-bound folders embossed with Marcello's signature gold logo. I'd designed them myself when I'd rebranded all 12 locations last year. Derek snatched the menu from in front of me before I could open it. "Don't even look at the menu, Sarah," Derek laughed, holding it out of reach. "Everything here is at least $60 an entree. Water is free though." The family roared with laughter. Monica actually wiped tears from her eyes. Amanda held her stomach, laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. Even my mother hid a smile behind her napkin. My father looked uncomfortable but said nothing. "I'm serious though," Derek continued, still holding my menu hostage. "This place is seriously expensive. I'm treating everyone tonight because it's Dad's birthday, but Sarah, you should probably just order an appetizer. I know your budget is tight." "I can afford dinner, Derek," I said calmly. "Can you though?" He leaned back in his chair, supremely confident. "Monica and I ate here last month. Our bill was $600 for just the two of us. You're telling me you can drop $100 on a single meal? On a manager's salary?" "I said I work in restaurant management, not that I'm a floor manager," I clarified. "Same difference," Amanda shrugged. "You work for restaurants. Derek owns part of his firm. There's a hierarchy." The server returned, a young woman named Jessica who'd worked at the flagship location for 3 years. She was excellent, attentive without being intrusive, knowledgeable about every dish. "Good evening," she smiled professionally. "Have we decided on drinks or would you like a few more minutes?" "Bring another bottle of the Dom Perignon," Derek ordered. "And for my sister," he gestured dismissively at me, "just water. Tap is fine." "Actually," I said, "I'll have the Chateau Margaux 2015 please." The table went silent. "Sarah," Mom said carefully, "that's $800 a bottle." "I know," I said. "It's excellent with the Wagyu ribeye, which I'll also be ordering." Derek's face went red. "You can't afford." "I can afford whatever I want," I interrupted. "But thank you for your concern." "This is ridiculous," Derek sputtered. "You're going to bankrupt yourself trying to keep up with." The executive chef walked to our table, still in his whites from the kitchen. Chef Antoine Rousseau was a legend, Michelin-starred, trained in Lyon, and the creative genius behind Marcelo's entire culinary concept. He was also on my payroll. "Good evening," he said warmly to the table, then turned to me. "Ms. Mitchell, thank you for purchasing all 12 locations. Your expansion plan is brilliant." Choked on her $200 steak, the piece she'd been chewing lodging in her throat. Dad had to pat her back while she coughed and reached for her water. Derek's face went from red to white. "What did you say?" "I was thanking Ms. Mitchell," Chef Antoine continued, either oblivious to or enjoying the shock at the table, "for acquiring the Marcelo's restaurant group. All 12 locations across the state. The deal closed last month, yes." 3 weeks ago, I confirmed. "The final paperwork was signed on the 15th. Chef Antoine beamed. "And your plans for the new location in Harbor City? Magnifique. With the waterfront view, the expanded wine cellar, the private dining rooms. You have exquisite taste." "Thank you, chef. That means a lot coming from you." "I wanted to thank you personally," he continued. "The previous owners, they were always cutting costs, pushing for cheaper ingredients, faster table turns. But you understand that great food requires investment, time, passion. You've given me the budget to create something truly special. You deserve the resources to do your best work," I said simply. "That's what builds a reputation worth sustaining." Chef Antoine kissed his fingers. "This is why you are a true restaurateur, not just an owner. Now, I will prepare something special for your father's birthday. A 7-course tasting menu, paired wines on the house. To celebrate both his 60 years and your excellent judgment in acquiring these beautiful establishments." He swept back toward the kitchen, leaving a table full of people who looked like they'd been slapped. The silence stretched on. Monica stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Amanda's mouth hung open. Derek looked like he might vomit. "You." Mom finally managed. "You own Marcelo's. All 12 locations," I confirmed. "The flagship here in downtown, 3 in the suburbs, 2 in Riverside County, and 6 scattered across the state in major cities. Total acquisition cost was $47 million. Current annual revenue across all locations is about $63 million. Dad set down his fork carefully. "Sarah, when did this happen?" "The acquisition? Last month. But I've been in restaurant ownership for 7 years. I started with a single bistro when I was 23, the one you all refused to invest in or even visit. That unrealistic dream you mentioned, Amanda." Amanda looked at her plate. "I ran that bistro for 2 years, made it profitable, then sold it for 3 times what I paid. Used that money to buy 2 more restaurants. Then 4. Then 8. I built a portfolio of 16 independent restaurants before this acquisition." 16 restaurants? Derek's voice came out strangled. "Had 16. Now I have 12 Marcelo's locations instead. I sold the independent ones to finance the Marcelo's purchase. Better brand recognition, stronger market position, and Chef Antoine came with the deal. He's worth the price alone." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning it so they could see the business account balance. $4.7 million. "That's liquid capital," I explained. "For operations, expansion, emergencies. The restaurants themselves are worth considerably more. Current estimated value of the Marcelo's chain is $68 million. I own it outright. No partners, no investors." Derek grabbed my phone, staring at the screen like it might be fake. "This can't be real." "It's very real. You can check if you'd like. Mitchell Restaurant Group. That's my holding company. I'm the sole owner and CEO." Jessica returned with my wine, pouring it with practiced grace. "Your Chateau Margaux, Ms. Mitchell. And Chef Antoine wanted me to tell you he's preparing the tasting menu now." "Thank you, Jessica. How's your mother doing? I heard she had surgery last week." Jessica's face lit up. "Much better, thank you for asking. And thank you for the time off and the flowers." She was so touched. "Of course. Family comes first. Take whatever time you need." Jessica smiled gratefully and headed to the next table. After she left, Derek found his voice. "You gave her time off? With pay?" "Her mother had cancer surgery," I said. "Of course I gave her paid leave. I also covered her mother's medical bills. $23,000. Jessica has been with us for 3 years and she's exceptional at her job. Good employees are hard to find. You take care of them." Mom's hands shook as she set down her wine glass. $23,000? You just gave her that money. I invested it in employee loyalty and morale, I corrected. Jessica will probably work for me for the next 20 years because she knows I value her. That's worth far more than $23,000. But how? Amanda finally spoke. How did you do all this without us knowing? You never asked, I said simply. Every Sunday dinner for 7 years, you all talked about Derek's bonuses and Amanda's husband's promotion and Monica's shopping trips to New York. When I tried to mention my restaurants, you'd change the subject or make jokes about my little food hobby. We thought you were a manager, Mom protested. You always said you worked in restaurant management. I do work in restaurant management. I manage 12 restaurants. I just happen to own them too. Derek's face had gone from white to purple. This is insane. You're 29 years old. Nobody builds a $68 million restaurant empire by 29. I did, I said. I worked 18-hour days for 7 years. I learned every position. Cooking, serving, hosting, managing, accounting. I slept in my car some nights because I was too tired to drive home after closing. I ate ramen for dinner while I invested every penny back into the businesses. I took a sip of my wine. It was perfect as expected. While you were buying designer suits and luxury cars, Derek, I was wearing the same 3 outfits and driving a 15-year-old Honda. While you were vacationing in the Maldives, Monica, I was negotiating with food suppliers and interviewing chef candidates. I sacrificed everything for this. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked quietly. We could have helped. Been proud of you. Could you? I looked at him. 7 years ago I asked you to invest $50,000 in my first restaurant. You told me I was naive and that I should get a real job with benefits. You said the restaurant industry was a fool's game and I was throwing my life away. Dad's face crumpled. I remember. I asked Derek to be a silent partner. He laughed and said he didn't invest in waitress fantasies. Amanda, you told everyone at Christmas that I was going through a phase and would grow out of it eventually. I didn't mean, Amanda started. Yes, you did, I interrupted. You all meant it. You were convinced I would fail, so you never bothered to check if I was succeeding. And honestly, part of me enjoyed that. Every time you mocked my little food hobby while eating at my restaurants, every time you assumed I was struggling while I was building an empire, it was satisfying in a petty way. Chef Antoine returned with 2 servers carrying the first course of the tasting menu, a delicate amuse-bouche of seared scallop with citrus foam. For the table, he announced. To begin our birthday celebration. As they set down the plates, Derek stared at his scallop like it might poison him. This location, I continued, the flagship Marcello's that you chose for Dad's birthday because it's the most exclusive restaurant in the city. I approved your reservation personally. I recognized your name in the system and decided it would be interesting to see how you all behaved. Monica made a small whimpering sound. The bottle of Dom Perignon you ordered to show off? My wine steward recommended it because it pairs well with Chef Antoine's amuse-bouche course. The $200 steak Mom is choking on? I set that price point after analyzing our cost structure and market positioning. I looked at Derek. You were so excited to treat everyone to dinner at Marcello's. To show Dad how successful you are by spending money at my restaurant. The irony is almost too perfect. Sarah, Derek's voice was quiet now, deflated. I'm sorry. I've been a complete ass. Yes, you have. For years. I've mocked you, dismissed you, treated you like you were less than me. Yes. He looked at his untouched scallop. Can I ask why you're telling us now? You could have kept this secret forever. Because I'm tired, I said honestly. I'm tired of being invisible to my own family. I'm tired of listening to lectures about fiscal responsibility from people who've never built anything from nothing. And I'm tired of watching you all celebrate mediocre achievements while ignoring extraordinary ones. I set down my wine glass. Derek, you make $250,000 a year working for someone else's company. That's good money. I'm not diminishing it. But you act like you've conquered the world. I've built something that employs 340 people across 12 locations. I've created careers, not just held a job. I know, he whispered. Mom, Dad, you wanted me to get a real job with benefits. I created 340 jobs with benefits. Full health insurance, retirement matching, paid time off, education assistance. Because I remember what it's like to be the employee hoping the owner notices your hard work. Mom was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. And Amanda, you thought this was a phase. 7 years is a pretty long phase, don't you think? Amanda nodded, unable to speak. The second course arrived. Butter-poached lobster with truffle risotto. The table ate in silence, the food exquisite but tasting like ash in their mouths. Finally, my father spoke. What can we do to make this right? Stop assuming I'm failing, I said. Stop treating me like the family disappointment. And maybe, occasionally, ask about my life instead of just telling me about yours. We can do that, Dad said firmly. Starting now. Tell me about the Harbor City location. The one Chef Antoine mentioned. So I told him. About the waterfront property I'd found, the 200-seat dining room I was designing, the private event spaces, the rooftop bar. I told him about my expansion plans, my staffing strategies, my vision for making Marcello's a nationally recognized brand. And for the first time in 7 years, my family actually listened. By the time dessert arrived, a spectacular birthday cake created by our pastry chef, the atmosphere had shifted. They asked questions. Real questions, not dismissive ones. They wanted to know about challenges I'd faced, decisions I'd made, dreams I still had. Derek laughed during coffee, a real laugh, not a mocking one. I've been a complete idiot. Yes, you have, I agreed. As the evening wound down, Derek insisted on paying the bill. I let him, knowing the irony wasn't lost on him. He was paying me for the privilege of celebrating at my restaurant. At the valet stand, Dad pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. I should have said it 7 years ago. I should have believed in you, invested in you, supported you. I'm sorry I didn't. Thank you, Dad, I hugged him. That means a lot. As I drove home in my old Honda, I thought about the evening. It hadn't gone how I'd expected when I'd approved Derek's reservation. Instead of drama, I got acknowledgement. Understanding. The beginning of actual respect. My phone buzzed with a text from Chef Antoine. That was magnificent theater. Your brother's face when I mentioned the purchase. Priceless. Looking forward to Harbor City. You're building something special. I smiled. Yes, I was. And finally, my family was starting to see it. Tomorrow I'd get back to work. The Harbor City location wouldn't build itself. But tonight, for the first time in years, I'd enjoyed a family dinner. Maybe that was worth more than any restaurant empire.